Hello, very beautiful community. I had an image a couple of days ago and I want to share it with you. And the image I had was of a European politician, a leader of a major European country, putting on social media a strong criticism of Trump and then suffering no consequences from that in their relationship with Trump. In fact, getting a benefit in their relationship with Trump. And this is something that we are desperately not understanding. That actually pushing back on Trump gets Trump to comply more, not less. And the reason that there is such an unbelievable outbreak of passivity among European leaders is threefold. First, they're scared about being under pressure in their fragile democracies at home. Second, they have no sense-making apparatus for Trump. What can you do? You can turn to experts. Experts in what? In international relations, in politics, in what? I'm going to tell you what's happening in Trump's head. So they have no way of getting inside Trump's head. And so they're just sort of keeping themselves away from figuring out what's going on there and just hoping that whatever is going on, they're not going to punch them in the face too hard too many times. And third, they have no strategy. They have no strategy for the future security of their own countries. And that takes you back to the first point. That's, again, very heavily driven by domestic pressure. If your democracy is fragile, you have a very limited platform to make bold pronouncements and moves on the international stage. But what gets lost in all of this is that hitting Trump harder actually, rather than alienating him, gets him to be a bit more compliant, because he gets no narcissistic supply from people who simply kowtow to him. He gets no narcissistic supply if you behave, like a mat. But he can get narcissistic supply if you boost him and push back against him at the same time. And this was one of the main points, I'm afraid a kind of a point of obvious agreement, almost embarrassedly obvious agreement, embarrassingly obvious agreement, in my conversation that I've just had on the main channel with Anthony SCARAMUCCI, where it was just so apparent to us both, apparent to me via emotional intelligence and the psychoanalytic architecture around understanding narcissism, and to Anthony via emotional intelligence and hands-on experience with Trump, that it's actually effective to push back against him. And it's unbelievable that so few leaders are doing it, with the kind of exception of Mark Carney. So the reason that this is so important is that Trump is not an aberration you can wait out. I won't give you that lecture again. You've got it 77 times from me. But what I'll say is that because he's not an aberration, we have to get serious about being proactive rather than passive as we're negotiating this terrible weather. Our boats are coming out of the bay, we're drifting toward turbulent seas and more authoritarianism. The less control we have over our boat via passively just trying to not do anything, the more we'll drift out into difficult waters. The more we are proactive in the way we drive our boat, the more we say, okay, we're going to go left because there are dangerous swells on the right. We're going to make that decision. We're going to be clear about that. We're going to keep a higher speed. At a lower speed, there's more of a risk of our boat capsizing. That's what we've got to do. It's not that we're necessarily going to sink if we're just like this, but the chances that we sink are higher, and the chances that we come out further into really, really bumpy waters are higher. So that's the paradox, right? You're trying to mitigate the danger by sort of freezing and doing the minimal effective dose without rocking the boat, as it were. But the point is, if you don't rock the boat, your boat's going to get rocked really hard by the elements. So you'd better start rocking it yourself. And there's a real block on leaders understanding it. And one of the things that Anthony and I put on the table was, are leaders of the younger generation going to understand that that's what you need to do? That's how you've got to be proactive. And I'm not saying that there's going to be 2 or 3 leaders exactly like Trump after Trump that we need to deal with. We're dealing with a special narcissistic personality disorder there. But one way or another, even if we're dealing with a different profile of an authoritarian threat, leaders who are much more hard-nosed and much more systematic than Trump, it's still going to be tough dealing with them, you know? It could be that that's a future president of the United States. It could be that that isn't a future president of the United States, but it's a leader of a major European country, and the president of the United States has to deal with them. One way or another, even if we have the more hard-nosed and organized authoritarians compared with Trump in the future, we're still going to have to be proactive in the way we deal with them. If we're passive, right, we're going to be in trouble. That kind of passivity also came out in our relationship with Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Passivity turned us away from reality and absorbed us into a kind of fantasy that if only we sit still and send a little bit of support to Ukraine, but not too much, somehow history will magically return us to a pre-2022 world, but it can't. So, strange as it might sound, it's pretty damn obvious, right, that you've got to play offense, not defense. And even though it's pretty damn obvious, the obviousness of it is unavailable to most leaders of Western countries currently in power. So that's the problem we face. And that's what Anthony and I talked about. And I think it's really important. It's really, really important. Because we are, talking about how you handle both a trend toward authoritarianism, but a particular authoritarian leader with particular tendencies, which you have to understand and manage rather than run away from. That makes a lot of difference to the future of democracy in the United States and in the West. Don't forget, when we deal effectively with Trump, we help Americans and help ourselves by creating the conditions for there to be fewer Trumps in the future. Right? So this is the favor that I want you to do for me. And this is why I want you to do it. So you know that it's recently been a year since I last stood up. And I use my wheelchair 15-30 minutes a day. And I'm working with very limited time windows. And it's a miracle what I can do within those, but it's still the case that the windows are tiny. But despite that, even though nothing has changed in my health over the last couple of months, I believe that it's time for me to bring back to life the main YouTube channel. And my aim is to start with doing fortnightly videos there and then come to do weekly videos there. They're going to be less produced, but that's not going to affect the quality of what I actually say. They'll still be more polished than the chats. So I need you to help me achieve that within extreme limitations of my health. And how can you help me? You can help me by engaging with the main channel. And that also means helping the conversation with Anthony, because I haven't posted for 2 months and the algorithm is very, very sleepy. And it's pushing that video less than even a random chat on the chat channel would be pushed. So if you haven't seen the conversation with Anthony, go over there and watch it. Like it. Comment. Hype it if you have that possibility. And reconnect with the main channel, right? Make sure you're subscribed. Check out if you've got the bell clicked. Click it a second time to make sure that it's on for you if you want to have notifications when videos are shared. So go over there and give the main channel some love, because this Anthony conversation is really important and it needs it. But also, I need you to help me do this within extreme health constraints on the main channel. And that means giving it a little bit of a wake up, giving it a little bit of love and engagement for this video with Anthony, which I'm going to leave here in the link below, but also just in general, be aware that I want to come back to the channel more, and I need your support with that, and that just means engagement. So go ahead, check out the Anthony video, give it some love, and thank you so much for being with me.